Welcome. Whoops, sorry about that. I am Deb McNamara. I'm the interim CEO and president of Catholic Charities of Fort Worth. On behalf of myself, Catholic Charities, and the city of Wichita Falls, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 4th annual Northwest Poverty Summit. In just a moment, you'll hear from our keynote speaker, Bob McLaughlin, and participate in a discussion on poverty with leaders from the Wichita Falls veterans community. But first, I wanted to take just a brief moment to touch on the importance of this evening's topic, the unseen impact of poverty on our heroes in need. Mental health, homelessness. These are the topics we're used to discussing when it comes to veterans and poverty. But we know through our comprehensive and holistic style of case management that there is so much more to a veteran's poverty than you see on the news. Represented here tonight are panelists from Catholic Charities Northwest Campus, Shepherd Air Force Base, and the Military Veteran Peer Network. Each of our organizations play an important role in serving the nearly 3,500 veterans in our immediate community. Only by working together can we begin to identify and break down the individual and interconnected barriers to eliminating our veterans' poverty. We can't do this alone. Our vision to end poverty one family at a time includes repaying our veterans for their sacrifices that they've made to ensure our peace and our freedom. That conversation starts here tonight. Now, to kick things off, it's my honor to introduce Father Basil from Our Lady of the Skies Catholic community located on Shepherd Air Force Base right here in Wichita Falls to deliver this evening's opening prayer. Thank you, Father.
May you please bow your head as I speak these words of prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Almighty God, we are most grateful for the gift of Catholic Charities and for the many things you accomplish through them. They have consistently provided compassionate, competent, and professional support to individuals, families, and communities with an eye on the dignity and the value of human life. As we come together this evening in commemoration of this Poverty Summit, we ask you to bless our guest speaker and our panelists. Continue to strengthen the many hands that are involved in the work of this organization. Replenish whatever energy they may give out in the discharge of their duties. May the events of this evening be very successful, and may it prosper beyond what anyone could have imagined, so that your people who are most in need may be provided for. Strengthen us that we, through love and concern for our brothers and sisters everywhere, may influence the moral fiber of those under our direction. Give us times of refreshment and peace in the course of our busy lives, and let our spirits be opened to the goodness of your creation that waits so often unseen. We ask you this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Big step. Oh, if you want me up here? No? Oh, other side. That would have been pretty, y'all.
Thank you so much, Father. That was just beautiful. We're truly honored to have the support of Shepherd Air Force Base and Our Lady of the Skies, and have you here this evening. What a beautiful prayer. Thank you. I'm Emily Clement. Executive Director of Catholic Charities Northwest Campus, right here in Wichita Falls. It's my honor to introduce you this evening to our keynote speaker, Bob McLaughlin, COO of Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I had the distinct honor of the time we got to meet right before COVID last year when we got to travel to Colorado Springs to see their impressive, beautiful Veterans Services Center. It was one of the last face-to-face meetings we had before the pandemic shut down everything, but what an impact it made on all of us. In fact, that meeting and Bob's impact played a big part in inspiring our plans to serve veterans in the future, something you'll hear more about this evening in detail. What makes Bob's keynote so important is the fact that not only has he been in his role at Mount Carmel since 2014, but he is a veteran himself. A retired colonel in the U.S. Army, Bob led a distinguished 29-year career as a combat arms officer. He knows exactly what it's like to make the transition between military and civilian life and is uniquely positioned to understand the specific needs veterans coming out of service require and how to make sure they receive them with dignity, honor, and respect. What he's done at the Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center is nothing short of astounding. Their mission to deliver hands-on, non-clinical case management is one that speaks to our soul and our hearts right here. Mount Carmel is unique because it's the only Veterans Service Center with integrated partner service delivery, meaning that their clients received all of their services under one roof. If you're familiar at all with typical veterans service programs, you know how truly rare and a real feat that is. In addition to his work at Mount Carmel, Bob also serves on several local and national veterans service boards, including the Colorado United Veterans Coalition and the VA Community Engagement Board for the Pikes Peak region. He holds a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Massachusetts, a Master's of Education from Fairleigh Dickinson University, and a Master's in Strategic Studies from the U.S. Army War College. Please join me in welcoming our friend, Bob McLaughlin. Bob, come on up. It's your turn.
Well, it's an honor to be here tonight to talk to you all about what I'm doing at the Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center. And one of the things I've realized across our nation, when people come together to do good things to support our military and veterans, it's great. I had an opportunity to speak to a group this morning, and the passion and commitment in your community is alive and well, and it's an honor to be here to talk about what I have experienced and in hopes that as you grow what you're doing, some of the lessons that I've learned can help out. Can we show the first slide? There's my favorite Republican, Ronald Reagan. I also have a Democrat on the screen that I'm going to show you, my other favorite, President John F. Kennedy. This is so true. Reagan said this, and it's so true about our veterans and their willingness to serve, to step up and help their nation. Go to the next slide, please. So a little bit about me in service. I am from Lexington, Massachusetts. If you know anything about history, that's Captain Parker right there. There's my John F. Kennedy and Reagan quote. And what I've always looked for in life, even as a young kid, is the good stuff. How do you bring good out of bad? How do you look for the positive? And I believe that being from a community like that, that celebrates patriotism every year on Patriots Day on April 18th for independence, I always go back to what Captain Parker might have felt as the Brits were coming upon him, the Redcoats, and he and his merry men took them on and obviously were defeated but led to our independence. We have a rich history of men like him and women fighting for our country, in this case for independence, which shaped me as a young kid to ultimately join the military. My family is originally from New England, which means I'm a Patriots fan, and a Tampa Bay fan for the opening game against Dallas, so forgive me. My wife Cindy is also from Massachusetts, and we're a Catholic Charities family. My wife Cindy is a grant writer in Colorado Springs for Catholic Charities. So family means everything, right? For veterans and military members, one of the things that I've always keyed on when I talk about service and sacrifice is the service and sacrifice of families and the importance that they have, and that during transition, families aren't connected to the military and the many services that they have. So as we service the veteran, we all must service the family as well. And I learned that lesson well during my service as a commander in the Army. Go to the next slide, please. So the Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center was birthed by a great man named Jay Cimino, who's in Colorado Springs. Jay and I met when I was serving as the garrison commander of Fort Carson, and he came up with a vision to help veterans. So my journey, like other veterans, started on the battlefield and then took me to a place where I'm serving today. So here's kind of how my journey took me to today, starting probably in 2006 and 2007 on the battlefields of Iraq. I was a task force commander assigned to a sector, a battle space in Iraq, where I commanded a task force there. And we, like many Americans, did our duty. And I had the privilege of serving alongside heroes, men and women who served and sacrificed for the good of their nation, and some didn't come home. Some came home wounded, some came home with invisible wounds. And I watched in my own formation as we returned to the States after our combat operations, the impact that combat operations had on our servicemen and their families. It's a calling now for me. So what are we here to do? This summit is about preventing homelessness, but the at-risk behaviors that keep us all up at night to help those who've served and sacrificed is to prevent suicide, 22 a day. Obviously unacceptable in our nation. Domestic violence brought on by post-traumatic stress, invisible wounds. I saw all of the impacts of combat on my soldiers, and it drove me and my family, my wife, who is a family advocate, to help those in need. I got orders to go to the Army War College, and I spent a year there with many other senior officers that had already had four or three deployments at the time. And there were struggles there as well. And then life-altering for me is when I became the garrison commander of Fort Carson in Colorado Springs, and I was able to, in that position, influence many programs and services for military families. We changed the dynamic of behavioral health. We brought mobile behavioral health teams into the combat brigade footprints, so the stigma of seeking service was gone. So if a service member needed to see a counselor, they could see them immediately. One of the things I'm most proud of is we built the Fallen Heroes Family Center for our Gold Star families. We owe them more than anybody. Service and sacrifices of those who never made it and the families that are left behind. We were driven then, and I continue to be inspired by their stories to make sure that we're taking care of the families of the fallen. Domestic violence, that we had programs to make sure that we're helping service members and their families cope with the effects of combat. holistically for wounded warriors. We built a service center, a one-stop center to help wounded warriors continue with either their service or separate honorably. So all that impacted me personally. And as I served on Fort Carson, I met Jay Cimino, who's an amazing man, a businessman in the community, and he challenged me to do this. He challenged me to do things to help veterans and their families. And at first I looked at him and I thought he was crazy, and then rising to the occasion, my wife told me, maybe it's time to do this. I had a tour in Afghanistan, my last tour of active duty, and he challenged me before I left that I might want to retire in Colorado Springs and raise my grandchildren. No grandchildren yet. I have 5 wonderful children. None has produced a grandchild yet, but Cindy will kind of dictate to me when that's okay. Obviously, there should be a marriage before that happens. No engagements. So he gave me that challenge and asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up. I had one more tour of duty in Afghanistan, and then came back from Afghanistan and was separated from my family for another year in Texas. I was in Fort Sam. So I'm a combat veteran with 5 tours, 5 children, and we experienced challenges in my family. And my wife, God bless her, took care of her veteran and her service member. Many of you probably see it in the community. I experienced it personally. My family did. And what kept us strong is my wife, Cindy, who made sure that I was strong as I was challenged. And then when Jay gave me the opportunity to do this, she said, it's probably time to do something different. So I took Mr. Cimino up on his challenge and started what is depicted in front of you, the Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center. It didn't start that way. It started with his vision in me taking the opportunity to apply the lessons learned as an active duty member to serve military veterans and their families at Mount Carmel. And it's really about my calling to serve in the military and then to stay in support of our military veterans and their families. And then what we talked about this morning here is to have the boots on the ground, to be able to have a place where people think it's a beacon of support to make it easy for them. Our mission is clear. It's to work with partners to make sure that we're having good services, that there are best practices, and I heard a lot about that this morning too. So my lessons are there's got to be a place. There's got to be a place that's warm and comforting and makes people feel welcome. In my circumstance, it's the Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center that Mr. Cimino so generously helped start, and we are still working on, and then to live a vision where we're making lives better. So if you can go to the next slide. Here's a picture in summer of 2016 of our grand opening. Mr. Cimino is in the middle. His daughter Gina is next to him. That handsome guy to your right is me. Probably didn't recognize it. And some of our board members. So what started in 2016, 5 years ago, is these 5 things when you talk about operational effectiveness for an organization that wants to help military veterans and their families. People, passion, process, profit, and product. For any organization to do a good job, you've got to apply these things. What I've learned is the people are critical. People who want to step forward, and you see them every day in what you're doing to serve, you've got to have people that have it in their heart. People with passion gives you another identifier that can be unequaled. To have passion to serve others is something that you can't measure. And then the 2 middle ones, process and product, sometimes are overlooked. You can't succeed with passion alone. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen organizations that have a lot of passion, they haven't thought through the product or the process, and they don't have success. So for me personally, to be able to have the product, which is the Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center with its services, and having good processes for making sure people feel comfortable, making sure that they're relaxed, making sure that they feel at home to get the services is critical. For those of you who are associated with the military, And Father, I'll give a biblical term, we got to catch some fish, right? So you can't catch fish if people are not comfortable, if they don't trust you. So for us, it was all about creating an environment where veterans trusted us to help them. And those 5 Ps are critical. And then people would say to me at the beginning, you're a nonprofit. What's the profit about? And everybody knows in our world, dollars are important, but not the most important thing. The most important thing is touching lives, helping people, making sure that you get the spiritual connection of saving a life, of making a life better, of preventing homelessness. So for me, when you talk about operational effectiveness, that's what it looks like. And I share that every time I get an opportunity to talk to people. That's why I'm sharing it with you today. Go to the next slide, please. So I shared this picture, and the team has this, but I just want to kind of let you know what the most important things are is the effects, right? We have 4 core competencies in Mount Carmel that make us strong. And for any veteran service organization, this is always my recommendation. On the bottom right is our Veteran Family Resources, which is supportive services. You've got to help the most needy, and you know that. The most needy have to have a boost. We call it a hand up, not a handout. Every military member that has served that might be going through dire straits or challenges succeeded at one time in their life. They raised their hand, 1% of our nation, to serve, and they succeeded in their training, in their service, and they might be going through a hard time and they need a boost. Our department there is meant to help give a boost, and I know through my experience with Catholic Charities, it's what you guys do with your partners every day. For us, it's about veterans specifically. And then on the top right, it's transition and employment. Every veteran, military member, and family member wants to be employed upon separation. Spouse employment. Everybody knows the national unemployment rate, I think, is about 9 to 10%. Spouse employment, it's 30%. What we try to do with all our military members, veterans, and their families is make sure they have an opportunity. This morning when I talked to the group, one of the things they asked me is, what about employers that are afraid to hire veterans because they think they have post-traumatic stress or can't handle the workplace? My answer then was, you have to educate employers to make sure that they understand the beauty of military service and the leadership that you're going to get from a young sergeant, a mid-grade officer, or even a senior officer. And in my community, in El Paso County in Colorado, there's 100,000 veterans. And of those 100,000 veterans, about 17% are retired. Like myself, you would assume that a retired veteran is okay. Not necessarily the case. Sometimes they have challenges that need to be overcome. Of that 100,000, 30%-ish have a VA-rated disability in which they're cared for by the VA. That leaves 50% of my community, like your community, that probably needs something. To be able to connect them in a place that makes it easy is very important. So for us, the transition is critical, the employment is second, but equal, and then behavioral health. I learned during my own transition with the VA the challenges of behavioral health counseling and the need of expedient care. Everyone's heard the stories of, unfortunately, maybe a veteran completing suicide in the VA parking lot because they lost hope. I mean, it's not the commonplace, but one is too many. What I do in my area is I partner with the VA. I have a behavioral health counseling center that's timely, that's passionate, that works with student interns, and we've had great success in referring people and making sure that they're cared for in the behavioral health community. So I'm very, very, very proud of that. Go to the next slide, please. And then in society today, it's as important to ask why. Everybody knows that just having a mission is important, but millennials want to know why. What's your why? Why do you do this work, and why is it important? So our why statement is right there. And I don't have my glasses on, so I probably can't read it. But if you look at the why statement, It's all about building a strong community and making sure that people are strong in the community. So that's critical to what we do, and then having a set goal. I think you can turn the slides off. You can turn them off. So what I want to share with you is some things that are very important when you look at military members, veterans, and their families. What did we learn in 2020? We learned that people are going to be in dire straits if we don't take care of them. We know that the issue with homelessness was even more severe in 2020, and that we needed to do more, just like you experience here. So what I did immediately in 2020 is a few things that are important to having a beacon of support. We touched, in my place, because we didn't shut the doors, we stayed open and we stayed safe. 25,000 heartbeats came through our door in that year, and we had 5 cases of COVID. We learned about doing remote or telehealth and how important that was to make sure that we're reaching out to people that can't be connected to, which was very important. And the other thing that I shared this morning is the need for rent assistance and how we were able to help people with rent assistance across the board to make sure that they were cared for. And then I believe that as you endeavor in this community to do more for veterans and their families, that there's going to be more public-private partnerships. People ask me from the chamber, how does that work? How does the funding work? For me, there's a lot of private funders and individual funders, but to continue to work with funders that are passionate, and I believe this coming up in the next couple of years, are federal, state, county, and local bureaucracy will help more, because they learned during COVID, if you get money in the right hands, it will support the right cause. So that's everything that we learned in COVID. So the last thing I want to share with you is more on a personal note. So when we talk to military veterans and their families, and those of you who are connected to military veterans and their families, I talk about 5 things, and here they are. This is what we all must do when we're connected to the military to make us strong going forward. Honor the fallen. The service and sacrifice that our fallen heroes made and their families, we owe them. We owe them so much. They didn't make it home, and their families are paying the price for losing a loved one. So for all our Gold Star families, the first thing we all should do is make sure if we're connected to somebody that has lost somebody, to pay tribute to them to the best you can. For veterans, be thankful. Sometimes we lose the ability, or we focus on the negative. We have a lot to be thankful for our service and for this nation. Be proud. We want to be, we should be proud of what we did, especially now. Especially now. Our veterans and those who support them have so much to be proud of. So much. Service and sacrifice in any area of deployment, whatever era, whether it's Vietnam, the Gulf War, the current conflicts, what's happening in Afghanistan now, our service members, and I tell them all the time, be proud of your service. You served and sacrificed. So my challenge to everyone is remind your veteran friends that they have a lot to be proud for. Live a legacy. I believe that we should all live a legacy, whether you're a military service member, a veteran, or not. We should all endeavor to learn from somebody that taught us a lesson. And then the last is to be proud and celebrate. Those 5 things. I want to share with you a couple of quick stories of service members that touched me. The first is my good friend John Ruwaco. John died in 2005. He was a friend of mine who I grew up with in Lexington, Mass., a combat Marine, and his legacy to me is leading from the front. I saw John before the Battle of Fallujah. He had flown so many combat missions, and he was a hero. What I didn't know is he was holding that inside. So there's a picture that I have of him and I celebrating the Red Sox World Series victory in 2004 in Al Anbar province in Iraq. Super Bowl Sunday, 2005, where the Patriots defeated the Eagles, John completed suicide in a hotel room. A Marine Corps major, 40 years old with 2 boys, lost his battle with the demons that he faced. His wife, Kim, had worked for TAPS. She just retired recently to help suicide prevention. So John's legacy for me, a childhood friend, was lead from the front, take care of people, and then for me, my calling in whatever I do going forward is to make sure that any action that I take prevents a veteran from completing suicide, from making sure that there's hope where there might be hopelessness. His legacy has lasted with me for over the last 16 years. His kindness, his leadership, and then ultimately losing his battle with his demons keeps me motivated to prevent that. His 2 young sons, Billy and Joey, are adults. They're doing great things. They're connected to my family. His wife, Kim, is like a sister to me. That's a person whose legacy I will live forever. Doc Cottrell. Eric Cottrell was an E5 medic in my battalion. He was an older guy. He was a sergeant medic who wanted to serve and continue service for his nation. My battalion was gearing up to go to Iraq in the summer of '06. And those of you who are veterans know this story. So Doc was passionate. He was well loved in the battalion. And prior to deployment, Sergeant Cottrell decided to have a few beers with the boys and get in a fight and got beat up by a specialist. So I have an Army sergeant that got in a fight with an enlisted soldier and got beat up. And what do you do with that guy? You obviously got to kick him out of the military because he has no discipline. Doc was a fantastic medic. He was very nervous. About 2 weeks before the deployment, he thought we were going to court-martial him or something. My sergeant major, who's one of my heroes, Tony Murguia, and I brought him into the office and kind of strung him along a little and told Doc, Doc, are you ready to save lives in Iraq? And he said, yes, I am. And I ripped up his reprimand and I ripped up the UCMJ and I said, well, let's get ready and go. So Doc was a medic in Alpha Battery. He probably was credited for saving 20 lives, impacting Iraqi soldiers and helping our soldiers just every day with what he did. One night in a place called the Zob Triangle, we were on a clearing mission in a town called Atha, and we encountered Al-Qaeda there, and shots were fired. We all went to where like we do where the sounds of the guns are. And I came upon the objective, and I saw Doc kind of in the shadows with the moonlight with a severe gunshot wound to his leg. I came up to Doc, and I said, what are you doing? He's not paying attention to his own wounds. He was taking care of a mother and a child that got caught in the crossfire, and he refused to leave because he was trying to save their lives because they had shrapnel wounds to their head, and he did. He saved their lives, and I was able to convince the first sergeant in plain English to get him the hell out of there. So we got Doc off the battlefield. Again, he did great work. In the town of Atha, a month later, Doc was killed by a roadside bomb. So a young medic who served and sacrificed for his nation, what he taught me is always care for others. To this day, I still get notes about his service and his sacrifice and how it drives me to do more to help others. So for me, the legacy is simple. Learn from those who came before you, continue to serve, and make an impact. And that's what I'm driven to do. I'm hoping that I can serve alongside of you here to do the same, and I look forward to that. So thank you.
group here. Wow. You can see why that trip really changed our hearts and minds of what we needed to do in this area. And thank you. Beautifully done. Thank you. Let's give Bob another round of applause. Well, we're going to hear more from Bob in just a moment, but first I'd like to introduce you to the esteemed panelists joining us here this evening. So if you'll come up, and I will introduce you as you get seated for the panel discussion. All of these people are making such a tremendous impact in this area, and I'm going to say first about Elliot and Michelle, and I'll tell you what they do in this area, but they were on our first, isn't that right, Carol, the first days of our coalition, right? So got to meet them, right, and they're so faithful and so wonderful, and things that they do for this community is amazing. But Michelle Schrader is Airman and Family Readiness Flight Chief at Shepherd Air Force Base. Elliot Bonner is a certified veteran coordinator at the Helen Farabee Center and doing amazing. Came in a little tired this evening. I think you had a rough day, right? It was busy. But I hope this inspires you and gives you, that next go, because we need you. Also with us is Ronna Huckabee from Fort Worth Catholic Charities. She's our Chief Services Officer. And, of course, Bob McLaughlin, Chief Operations Officer at Mount Carmel Veteran Services in Colorado Springs. And I'm going to go ahead and start us off with some questions and kind of dig a little bit deeper on what's going on and what some questions you might have. But let's do that together. And I'm going to start off with a couple of questions, but please start thinking some things that you would like to hear from our panel this evening. And so let's get started. Bob, you're first. Nice. I have a script here, so I'm going to use it. But what was making, we talked a lot about this the last couple of days when you've been here, but what was making the transition from military to civilian life, how was it like for you personally? And would you say that your experience was typical? Why or why not?
So do I use this mic or the?
It's good.
So I'll answer it in a way that applies to all veterans and how I see that. And during transition, what happens for military members is, in many cases, people who join the military do it for calling and in a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And the biggest challenge upon separation from the military is they lose that. If you join a good organization that has those values, all military organizations, all services have a set of values. The Army has specific values. There's 7 of them. They're all good things: loyalty, duty, honor, personal courage, integrity, and selfless service. Those are things that you would want in anybody that's employed by you. So the struggle for our military members is losing that. So my transition was not typical in that I knew a year prior to separating from the military that I was going to embark on the journey that I talked to you about. So I've never lost the sense of service. So to me, that was not typical. What was typical, whether you serve 6 years or 30 years or 4 years, is the fear of the unknown. In our veteran suicides, when you look at the amount of stress that's during transition, a lot of that happens during transition. So the fear of the unknown, in my case, was gone because to the most part, I knew what I was going to do, and I knew there was going to be passion. So it wasn't typical, but still challenging. For me, the father of 5, I believed that I would be able to support my family because I had employment lined up with passion, and it was good. So the challenge for all of us is, how do we make sure somebody in transition that might not have that has hope, knows that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and that they're supported. Did I miss a part of the question?
No, it's perfect. Do you think in this day and age that this time in our country that we're doing a little bit better job of that? You know, my husband went to Vietnam, and it was not good. So there was no transition or no counseling or nothing there. Do you think, serving on these national boards, do you feel like there's a positive?
Absolutely. I would tell you the fabric of our nation, I'll guarantee you this, is nobody spitting on soldiers at the airport. You know, I talk to Vietnam veterans all the time about the service and sacrifice and how our nation welcomes home troops, and that one thing alone, that change and understanding is hugely important. So that one thing is a world of difference. And then there's so many programs out there, whether it's Air Force or Army, with the VOW Act that helps with career skills programs. If you didn't know this, taxpayers, thank you. We now allow service members up to 180 days prior to separation to get an internship or a fellowship, something that will lead to employment. When I separated, the Army was paying almost $35 million a year on unemployment. President Obama signed the VOW Act to change the dynamic where the goal was, before you got your DD-214 proof of service, you knew that you were going to be employed, which is good. The challenge is, in most veteran transitions, the first employment lasts about 6 months. Places like Mount Carmel and what you're trying to do here exist to make sure that somebody's going to pick up the pieces where there might be a sense of failure, which is critical.
Do any of you have questions for Bob? This is a good time. Yes, Michael. She's coming. Sorry about that. I should have told you that. Thank you.
You don't hear me? All right. Go Navy. Do you see advances in, I guess, transition assistance classes? Because I remember when I initially went through, I served 1994, then 2000, 2006, and in 94, doing transition assistance classes, that's when you're getting ready to come off active duty and transition back into civilian life. It was pretty much, okay, this is the VA, these are some of your benefits, go. And that was pretty much it. Are the veterans who are just being discharged being made more aware with the benefits that are available to them? That makes sense?
Oh, thanks for that. So I will tell you that, the TAP program is the standard military program of all services that every service member has to go through. The challenge is, are they paying attention? And much of it, unfortunately, becomes rote for the deliverer of the service. I will tell you what's really improved is the VA's involvement in that. Many service members in transition are concerned with their disability rating and what that's going to be, because that means service and means a few dollars. But that's kind of, the focus. I want to know what my rating's going to be when I go into transition with my veteran service officer. The other part, which is employment and what are you going to do, sometimes comes secondary. The beauty of the VOW Act, since you separated with TAP, is there's counselors that help specifically with employment, and selfishly, from my perspective, the way to succeed nationally across the country is good public-private partnerships. Mount Carmel in Colorado has an office at the TAP building on Fort Carson. So the good news there is for the families and the veterans that might not succeed in their first job, they are aware that there are organizations in the community that are partnering with the military. Hiring Our Heroes is one. They're a national organization. So having those safety nets that stood up with a call to action by the Secretary of Defense in 2013, who said in a public memo that we are going to fail as a nation. The VA and DOD is not equipped for the amount of challenges we're going to have through prolonged conflict. And there was a call to action with private organizations to step up and help. And the challenge there is that's great to have the passion, but the dollars have to come from somewhere. So to be able to meet that need with public-private partnerships, my long answer is it's got a lot better. And with those partnerships, we've probably gone from a C to a B+, and we need to get it to an A or an A+.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? David? Excuse me. Oh.
Great, thank you so much. First off, thank you so much for that presentation. I'm the father of 2 sons who served in the Army in Iraq, and I've got 2 questions to ask, and one is private. I'd like to ask you after the meeting, if that's okay. The public one, a good friend of mine who's very interested in this asked, why is integrated partner service so crucial to Mount Carmel's success? And can you elaborate a little more about how you came to that realization?
Well, thanks for that. Mr. Cimino is to obviously thank for that. He told me, you know, you might think you're important and you can get things done, but nothing's going to happen without partners. So he's absolutely right in our very mission statement that you've got to bring the coalition of the willing together. Everybody that wants to serve veterans has passion, and there's more strength in integrated services. So for me, my first year before the building was open, I spent the whole year generating momentum with partners that wanted to help. And frankly, the areas that we focused on was what the community said. They told me at the time, and it's different in every community, education, services, and counseling is critical. So those universities that fleece soldiers on the GI Bill, you've got to prevent that. Financial coaching and counseling is critical. Legal counseling, unfortunately, is critical. Housing assistance, preventing homelessness is critical. And then integrating is important. So that's how I started building those partners, from colleges and universities, from financial institutes that wanted to counsel, linked to all the homeless prevention organizations, and then getting pro bono legal advisors, better known as lawyers, on board to help us. So that was how I learned the beauty of partnerships. But the second piece of that is you've got to have a base of service to go along with that. And our base is behavioral health, transition and employment, and supportive services. So I learned from the beginning, you've got to have partners, you've got to work together, and you've got to be united. And that sometimes is a challenge.
Anyone else have a question for Bob? Over here. David, she's coming with the microphone.
Why is it so important to make veteran services such a large part of Catholic Charities' mission here in Wichita Falls? What is unique about Wichita Falls?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's Catholic Charities. I will answer that on behalf of Catholic Charities. I think my first reaction to that is that Wichita Falls is a military town. Not only does we have Shepherd Air Force, we have lots of retired military, a lot of military families here in this area. And so, Catholic Charities, our goal to, end poverty one family at a time is really focused about, doesn't matter if you're a veteran or not, we want to serve everyone, but knowing that there's such a need. And our goal also with Catholic Charities, wherever we serve, is to not repeat services. And so we actually saw that there were some gaps in serving our veterans, and so we really want to step up and fill those gaps and be sure that our veterans have a complete menu of services and easier access. Getting that under one roof in the future, I think, will be key.
Mindy, she's over here, if you don't mind. It's Barb. You are short. You have not grown since I've seen you last.
Michelle, this is for you. Because I'm interested, I know what you do at the base, and thank you for your service, but can you let us know what specific needs our local veterans in Wichita Falls have?
I can speak for those that we assist at Shepherd, and Bob really hit on a couple of key things. And one thing that's unique about Shepherd, we're the closest servicing Air Force Base to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So when Bob mentioned two things, one, our Gold Star family members, that's a program that's very near and dear to my heart. You meet people, you hear their stories, you hear about the loved ones that they have lost, and you get to make that connection, and you get to make them feel that we are always going to be here to support you. The Air Force family is here, as well as the Army is, through the Army, the Navy. Do we have any Marines in the house? I've heard different different branches of services met. But truly, what I believe for our veterans, it's helping them still feel connected. And a big piece, and with the VOW Act, huge changes with the transition program. And that was not just with the Air Force, that was across the Department of Defense, because they did realize we are paying out a lot of money to our veterans because they are unemployed. So what do we need to do better? So those changes have been crucial. But the key point, and like he said, a lot of people may leave the service with a job. 6 months later, it's different. And the reason being, we have wounded warriors. We have individuals that have those invisible wounds. We have a couple that we're dealing with right now at the office, and the wife comes to all of the appointments with her husband because he is a wounded warrior, and he has trouble retaining that information. And there's just times where the family has questions that maybe he might forget to ask. So I think really the biggest thing that we see through our office is being there to support those and being able to ask those tough questions, because sometimes on the surface level, people don't want to share things. So you have to build that trust. You have to let them know that we're here. You have to let them know we have the financial counselors on staff that can assist. What is your individualized transition plan going to look like for you and your family as you move forward? And I think a key thing for that too, what are the resources in the community as well as on that military installation? Because what's true today might not be true tomorrow, and it may be very different further on down the road once that uniform comes off. I know some people, they joke about it. How am I going to dress myself when I leave the military? I've known what I have to wear to work every day. So there's a lot that's going on. Then there could be family concerns. Maybe they have moved back to Wichita Falls because they have family in the local area. And possibly the children are upset because they left their friends behind in Florida. So I really think that even though we're looking at supporting families, it all comes down to a lot of individualized assistance and just being there to listen, because it can be different for each of them. And I know that's a well-rounded answer, but when you see so many families, on a regular basis, every story is different, and we have to take that time to listen.
Anyone else that have some things they've been thinking about through these presentations? I'm going to ask a question of Elliot. We've known you a few years now, and you probably have heard and seen it all. What do you think? What do you think is the most compelling or urgent issue in the mental health counseling part of your work in your peer network at Helen Farabee?
I think the biggest problem that I'm running into is getting the veterans to understand that there is help out there in the community. Our community here in Wichita Falls, we have a lot of resources. I make it a point personally for me to understand every resource we have in our community. I work at the local mental health authority here, mental health. We have the VA clinic here that has counselors. We have Catholic Charities with Kimberly, have counseling there. So I make it a point to make sure that I understand every resource in the community. And when the veterans come see me, I tell them, okay, we got this, 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 and this. And then I follow up with them to make sure that they're getting or trying to access those services. The biggest problem is money. transportation. A lot of veterans that I service or help are poor. They don't have transportation. I spent all day today and yesterday and last week trying to get veterans off the street. We got a lot of homeless veterans here in the community. Thank God for Catholic Charities. Thank God for Steve Sparks over at Faith Mission. Nortex, Diane Morgan, I don't think is here. Thank God for her with her programs. We're getting veterans off the street. So that's a big, major problem that we have in the community that I'm running into. A lot of veterans that leave military service don't even know that they even have benefits. I find that unbelievable. Matter of fact, when I left military service, I didn't think I had benefits. So I think that we need to have more communication, more education in the community, and basically more, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? We just need more people involved in helping our veterans.
You know, Elliot, on that note, we have found at Catholic Charities, some of the homeless clients who walk in oftentimes are embarrassed to say, I was a veteran, or I am a veteran. I was in the military. I'm not, I've let everybody down. My family, the military, my country. And it's really hard. How do you get through that barrier?
So when the veterans come to my office, I spend a considerable amount of time talking with them, building that rapport, because they're not going to talk to you. They're embarrassed. Mm-hmm. So I spend at least an hour, 2 hours talking to them, building that rapport, asking those little quirky questions, trying to get information from them, and giving them answers, resources where they can access, or I will help them get it. I don't do the work for them. That's not going to help, but give them the information and access to the resources that we do have in our community. We have a lot of resources here, so let's use them.
Ron, I have a quick question on this, our out-of-poverty case management. How does that help these veterans, the case management model we have?
I think that, our approach to case management definitely is holistic. Serve with dignity, really looking at them, lifting them up. I loved what you said earlier, Bob, about letting them know that we're proud of them, and that's really what our whole attempt was. And one of the things we also do in our case management training is really helping our staff understand mindset and how they can get to some of those issues, what questions to ask, to make sure that people are feeling comfortable, that they're not ashamed to say that I'm a veteran. And I was successful here. I knew what to wear. Now I can't support myself. And so really getting rid of those things, I think those barriers can really help in the success. And so our whole goal with our case management, again, is that wraparound, holistic, but we can't do everything. And that's why we're so relying so hard on our partnerships and really hope to see that we have a Mount Wichita Falls someday, like Mount Carmel. So
Mount Our Lady of the Skies. There you go.
Well, and like Elliot said, there are a lot of services, but they're fragmented.
Yeah.
And people may not even know what we do unless we've told them, here's what we're doing. And so through our coalition, trying to get everyone aware what the other person is doing. It's not a competition. There's plenty of veterans to be served. And so really just wanting to have that unified front so we can serve those who have served us.
Yeah. That's perfectly stated. Bob, how about you? What do you think for Wichita Falls? You shared a few things today. What do you think after spending 2 days with us?
Well, the passion and the people that I've met is amazing. Obviously, this is a military town, and from what I learned, there's great resources to support the military and veterans. For me, the biggest lesson that I learned is you go about building the collaborative and attempting to get a space that supports it. And I think somebody asked, to me, the space and the common location is critical. To be able to get to that where the vets know I can go to this one place and I don't have to worry about getting online, Googling something, that somebody is going to care for me. The people I met all care. If you're able to bring it together in a location, we met the great veteran service officer this morning. Public-private partnerships are everything. To be able to take the county resources, even if they don't do it every day, that if you can take those resources and the vets know that on this day, this service is going to be there. To me, it's been life-altering to be able to watch the vets and their families know I can go to a location and get what I need. And the other critical part is, and if I can't get it there, somebody there is going to hug me, virtually or literally, and make it easy. So passion, critical, you've got it. The need, you've got it. The resources, you've got. It's a matter of making it easy for the people in need.
Thank you so much. Perfectly said. I appreciate that. You know, one thing that we didn't mention at Mount Carmel was the beautiful spiritual place they have, a chapel there. Just take 30 seconds to tell you. Along with all the wraparound services, the one-stop shop that they have there, and Bob and his team take care of so many people. There is a chapel that is any denomination. You see the Rocky Mountains through the windows. Beautiful place. And for those minutes that we stayed there, I was reminded of that song, "Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I feel his mighty power and his grace." So that's what I feel right now for all of you, the work you've done to pull together in areas that you work, our donors, our board members, the folks from Fort Worth. Father, thank you, from Shepherd. You've been amazing. Thank you all tonight, but we're not quite finished. The best is yet to come. Brian Anderley. I've known Brian since he was a baby. Here we go. Come on up. She didn't. She did not. I just remember when your dad was in Vietnam, she had that little baby in church, and you were adorable then, Brian. I know. Brian is just accepted. Yes, accept.
Do you want to reenact that bouncing me on your knee?
I don't think this old lady can do that. Not going to try. But Brian has been amazing. He is, we could go on, but he is a new member of our advisory council, and just thrilled to have him here. And we would like for him to say a few words to wrap up the evening. So thank you so much.
Rona. She needs to help me. I can't read.
I have to hold the flashlight. I have to hold the flashlight.
I went to Subiaco.
I've told the flashlight so we can read his notes. I just wanted to take a little opportunity and sort of before Brian gets started, because I don't know how many of you are aware, but tonight is Emily's last Poverty Summit as an employee of Catholic Charities. So, gosh, her last day with us as an employee is next Tuesday. She is retiring again. But we only wish her well and thank her for her imprint. And I promise you, we're not going to miss a step. We're going to keep on keeping on. I'm going to be up here more. I don't know if that's helpful or not. But I just wanted to be able to publicly thank Emily for the time that she has given us and her passion. And she's really helped open a lot of eyes in our community about what we need to be doing. She has such a passion for those in poverty and our mission and our vision of ending poverty one family at a time. So, Emily, thank you so much. And she is going to stay on and doing a little consulting for us. So, once you come to Catholic Charities, you really never, ever leave. But we just wanted to have an opportunity to thank you. So, thanks.
Kind of looks like I'm the shortest guy to stand up here tonight. Well, thank you so much to each one of our panelists for joining us here tonight. And a special thank you to Bob McLaughlin for coming all the way from Colorado to help guide us on these important decisions. My name is Brian Anderley, your local farmers insurance agent and proud member of Catholic Charities Fort Worth Northwest Campus Advisory Board. Makes me sound really important. Combating poverty among veterans has never been harder than it is today in the midst of a global pandemic. People who never needed our services before are turning to us for help. In true Catholic charity style, we've begun the process of answering their calls and then some. It's my honor tonight to share with you our agency's plans to give back to the veterans. I'm thrilled to announce that thanks to the generosity of an anonymous foundation, we have taken the first step to turning our vision of creating an all-inclusive Veteran Service Center right here in Wichita Falls into reality. At the end of 2020, our Catholic Charities Northwest Campus opened a dedicated Veteran Center at our current Wichita Falls office. Including a mental health and financial wellness experts, this is a shared space where our community partners, such as Resource Recovery Council and Veterans Services officers, can meet with our veterans and work with our case managers so that our veterans can receive the care they deserve right under one roof. But to serve the more than 11,500 veterans in Wichita County, we need more space to expand and collaborate with our community partners. It's our hope that by 2025, with your support, we're able to open a freestanding Veteran Service Center to strengthen our community partnerships, create solutions to veterans' most common issues, including homelessness and transportation, and serve every veteran who comes through our doors needing help to move out of poverty on a much larger scale. But we can't do this alone. Please, if you were moved by anything you've heard or seen tonight, considering making a gift to Catholic Charities Fort Worth Northwest Campus. Maybe you want to make a donation in Emily's honor. Had to put that in there. You can give right now by using the QR code printed on the back of the program, or later by filling out the accompanying pledge card and mailing it in. No gift is too great or too small. Whether you make a one-time donation or a recurring pledge, I want to give you some examples of what your gift will allow us to accomplish. All donations made today will go directly to veterans services and programs at Catholic Charities Northwest Campus, right here in Wichita Falls. $100 will assist a veteran with one clinical counseling session. $250 will help purchase bus passes or gas cards for veterans to get to appointments. $500 helps the veteran with housing, deposits, and utilities. $1,000 helps cover our veterans' ongoing medical expenses. And anything around $100,000 will get that building before 2025. On behalf of everyone at Catholic Charities, Fort Worth, and the veterans and their families that we serve, thank you for joining us this evening.